Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm doing a Timelord deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because Timelords are an extremely powerful deck to play because they're super hard for your opponent to deal with because they have absolutely broken effects. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name scratched in every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Yugioh. Yugioh is definitely a 3-of in the build. It's probably one of the most broken Time Lords in the entire game because this card can actually halve your opponent's life points. Now, all of your Time Lord monsters share some really cool common effects that they cannot be special summoned from the deck, and if you control no monsters, you can normal summon them without tributing. They cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects, which is broken powerful, and you take no battle damage from attacks involving these cards. And at the end of the battle phase, if they battled, you get a really cool bonus effect. For example, your copy of Yugioh halves your opponent's life points, which is crazy powerful. Also, they have the ability that once per turn, during your standby phase, you shuffle them back in the deck, and all of your Time Lord monsters share that common ability to shuffle themselves back into the deck. But Yugioh is absolutely broken, because if he does battle, he halves your opponent's life points. We then play 3 copies of Raffion. Raffion is really cool in this deck because this card actually does burn damage with the ability that at the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of one monster your opponent controls that battled this card, meaning we can actually summon out a kaiju to our opponent's side of the field and do a lot of burn damage with this card's ability. We then play a single copy of Zafion. Zafion's really good as a 1-of. I did consider playing this card as a 2-of because this card has the ability, if this card battled, shuffle all spells and traps your opponent controls into the deck, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you draw a card, which is a really cool ability. We then play a single copy of Lazion. Lazion's really cool as a 1-of as well in this build because if this card battled, you shuffle all cards from your opponent's graveyard into the deck, which is an insane effect. I love that about this card. It just deals with all the cards in your opponent's graveyard, and if your opponent draws a card, inflict 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. We then play a single copy of Camion. Camion's really good as well because this card is insanely powerful at getting rid of cards on the field, and has the ability at the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, you shuffle one card that your opponent controls into the deck, and if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent, and neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation, which is an insane ability. We then play a single copy of Medion. Medion's great as a 1-of as well in this build because this card is a really cool ability. If it battles, return as many monsters on the field as possible back to the hand other than this card, and if you do, inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent for each card return, which is a crazy powerful effect just to do burn damage to your opponent while also getting rid of the monsters on the field. We then play a single copy of Sandion. Sandion is insanely powerful because this card comes out at 4,000 attack points, and this card is actually really unique because this card does 2,000 burn damage to your opponent, which is really cool. This card is insane, but the only downside of this card is neither player actually takes battle damage from battles involving this card. Even though it comes out at 4,000 attack points, neither player takes battle damage, which is a little bit of a downside to this card, but it's totally fine because we do get to summon out a 4,000 attack point boss monster that does 2,000 burn damage to your opponent, which is really insane. We then play 3 copies of Time Maiden. Time Maiden's really cool as a 3-of in the build, as if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and this card can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Time Lord monster, but you can tribute this card to add a Time Lord monster with 0 attack from your deck to your hand. You can also banish this card from the graveyard to special summon a Time Lord monster with 0 attack from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, and you cannot special summon other monsters to turn you activate this effect, which is the only downside of this card, but this card is definitely a 3-of in the build. We then play 2 copies of the Star Destroying Kaiju, 2 copies of the Thunder King Kaiju, and a single copy of Dolgaran. I feel like this is the perfect number for kaijus in the build, as you want to play large kaijus in this deck because it really helps out overall to hand your opponent a really big kaiju, especially when you summon out cards like Raffion, and we don't take damage from the battles, which is really awesome. Plus, I play a really spicy spell card in this deck that you need a really high attack point monster to be able to use. So these cards are really good in the deck to be be able to use overall to just deal with your opponent's field while also getting a monster on the field to do some burn damage with Raffion. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of 1-for-1. 1-for-1 is really good in the deck as a 1-of, just to help us get a copy of our Time Maiden on our side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is great in the deck as a 3-of because we really don't need the extract, so this card comes in extremely handy just to help us draw 2 cards. We then play 3 copies of Celestial Transformation. This card is amazing in the build because it lets us special summon a fairy monster from our hand, and that monster's attack is halved, but half of 0 is still 0, so it doesn't really do anything to our Time Lord monsters, also destroyed during the end of the phase of the turn, which is again not that big of a deal for our Time Lords. We then play 3 copies of an extremely spicy tech card that I'm actually going to lay face down, and we're going to play Guess That Card. So comment down below what you think this card is. It's a really spicy spell card that I play in this deck as a 3-of, and it's an amazing card. So we're going to reveal this card in 3, 2, 1, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys, and definitely hit that bell so you can become part of Notification Squad. And let's go ahead and check out what this card is. But remember, guys, we're on the road to 100K subscribers, so every subscriber counts, so definitely consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and check out what this card is, and it's actually going to be 3 copies of Duel Tower. Duel Tower is a really cool 3-of in this build that has an insane ability that at the start of each battle phase, each player can reveal 1 monster from their deck that does not have question mark attack, which we always reveal a Kaiju, which is going to be 3,300. You can banish those cards face down, and then the player who revealed the monster with the highest attack, which is always going to be us, each player if tied, can special summon 1 monster from their hand, and that monster can attack directly while it's on the field, meaning our Time Lord monsters can attack directly, and it just gives us an additional Time Lord monster on our side of the field off this card's ability, which is why this card is so broken in this build. I absolutely love this card in the deck. This card also has ability once per turn during the end phase. You can activate this effect that if you control this card during the end phase of your next turn, destroy all cards on the field, just like what happened in Battle City with the Duel Tower. But this card is really cool because it's super nostalgic because it's the Duel Tower from Battle City, and it's just an awesome card to be able to play in Time Lords because it gives us an additional Time Lord on our side of the field because they cannot be special summoned from the deck, but they can be special summoned from the hand. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute is great as a 3-of build just to board wipe our opponent's monsters, and it's amazing because it really doesn't affect our Time Lord monsters because they cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. We then play 3 copies of Magic Cylinder. Magic Cylinder is a crazy powerful 3-of in the build that's just really cool because you will win games off of this because your opponent is not going to play around Magic Cylinder. Nobody expects this card. It's just a really cool card to do burn damage to your opponent, especially when you hand your opponent a 3,300 attack point Kaiju, and then you flip a Magic Cylinder on it to be able to do that amount of burn damage, which is just hilarious. We then play 3 copies of Empty Machine. Empty Machine is great as a 3-of in the build because the first time this face-up card on the field would be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, it is not destroyed. And once per turn, you can activate one of these effects to either discard a level 10 monster to draw a card, or if this card's the only card in your spell and trap card zone, you can try to Time Lord monster in the graveyard, shuffle in the deck, and then set a copy of Infinite Machine directly from your hand or deck. We then play a single copy of Infinite Machine. Infinite Machine is really good as a 1-of in the build. It's a break if you draw into it, but you need to play this card as a 1-of for your copy of Empty Machine. But this card is really good because you can activate this card by sending a copy of Empty Machine from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard. And once per turn, this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And once per turn also, you can activate one of these effects. During your main phase, you can special summon a Time Lord monster from your hand, or you can target a Time Lord monster in the graveyard, shuffle it into the deck, and then set a copy of Infinite Light directly from your hand or deck. We then play a single copy of Infinite Light. Infinite Light is really tough to get this card to actually go off, because by the time you get this card on your side of the field, you probably already won the game, but it's still really cool to be able to play in the deck because it lets you activate this card by sending a face-up Infinite Machine from your spell and trap card down to the graveyard. And this face-up card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and neither player can target Timelord monsters you control with card effects, or return Timelord monsters from the field back into the deck, meaning they stay on the field. This card also has the ability once per turn. If you control no monsters, you can special summon up to 1 Timelord monster each from your hand, deck, and graveyard with different names, ignoring their summoning conditions, which is a crazy powerful effect to get you 3 Timelord monsters on your side of the field, because by then, you're probably just going to win the game. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with 3 copies of Gustav Max. Gustav Max is definitely a 3-of, because this card just does 2,000 burn damage to your opponent by detaching material, and this card is amazing in the build overall, because it does that burn damage to your opponent to close out games. But keep in mind, as we go through the extra deck, you really don't need the extra deck all that much, because we're pretty much just using it for extravagance. We then play Super Dora. Super Dora is really good as a 2-of in the build because this card helps you just basically have a big unaffected monster. As once per turn during either player's turn, you can detach a material from this card, then target a face-up monster on the field, and that target is unaffected by card effects except for its own effects until the end of this turn. We then play 2 copies of Juggernaut Lieb. Juggernaut Lieb is really cool as a 2-of in the build because this card is just amazing in helping you OTK your opponent. We then play a single copy of the 7 Sins. The 7 Sins is very easy to summon to your side of the field with your Spider Engine, and it comes out at 4,000 attack points and just makes a really big copy of Zeus. We then play a single copy of number 84. Number 84 is also really good as a 1-of in the build, as you can make it really easily with your copy of your Ravenous Tarantula, which is amazing about this card. This card is basically a stepping stone to get into your copy of 7 Sins to help you make a copy of Zeus, almost like a Downer Magician. We then play 2 copies of Ravenous Tarantula. Ravenous Tarantula is how the entire spider package starts, and this card has the ability all monsters you control gain attack in events equal to the difference in your life points and your opponent's life points. And while this card has Exile material, each time your opponent special summons a monster, you inflict 600 points of damage to your opponent. And once per turn, you can detach from this card, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to this card's, which is an insane effect. But it's really good to be able to summon out this card to your side of the field, and then summon out your copy of your number 84 Pain Gainer, and then number 77 to basically just step into your copy of Zeus. We then play 2 copies of Typhon. Typhon's amazing in the build as a 2-of, just to be able to summon this card out to your side of the field, because it's very easy to make your copy of Typhon, because this card is basically a walking skill drain and a bounce. And then finally we play 2 copies of Zeus. Zeus is really good because this card is a board wipe, and it's just a fantastic boss monster to be able to make, because it board wipes the field. So that's it for the deck, guys. I would enjoy. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Timelord before, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's a really fun deck to be able to play, and it's actually really simple to play too, because you're pretty much just normal summoning your Time Lords to your side of the field till you win through burn damage. So that's good for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can come part of Notification Squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.